Welcome to the Library of Ideas of the Democratizing Work Global Forum. My name is Pavlina Tcherneva, and I will introduce the idea of decommodifying work through a job guarantee. The job guarantee is a proposal that calls on governments to design and implement a program that offers employment opportunities on demand at living wages and benefits to anyone who's seeking such work. When we say on demand, we mean that this will be a permanent policy that will address all types of involuntary unemployment, whether they stem from climate crisis, from the pandemic, technological change, or just garden variety recessions. The program will be there to provide the employment opportunities, and in this way, it is essentially a public option for good jobs. The work will be in the public service sector, and it will help address acute social and environmental needs. But the program is not a job creation policy alone. It is also a structural policy, a macroeconomic stabilization policy, and one might think of it as a bridge between human rights considerations and macroeconomic stabilization. I say this because of the right to guarantee employment, decent employment, is a perennial demand. There are several traditions where one will find work on the job guarantee, and the oldest of which is the human rights tradition. The first mention of the right to employment one may find in the French Constitution of 1793, but of course it is also there in the UN Charter of 1945, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948, as well as many national constitutions, modern documents, policy proposals, covenants. It is the human rights perspective that also informs our work at the Democratizing Work Manifesto, and recognizes that employment creation cannot be left to the private sector alone, and the public sector plays a crucial role in guaranteeing this right. The second tradition is the tradition on economic security, perhaps most closely associated in the United States with the work of the New Dealers of the 1930s, where the Roosevelt administration articulated the vision for economic security, and that vision would rest on two key components. The first one would be guaranteeing employment to all who can work and are available to work, and the second is guaranteeing income to those who cannot. FDR had put those two components and considerations in what he called the Second Bill of Rights, or the Economic Bill of Rights. Civil rights leaders also organized around the job guarantee, recognizing that the economy cannot deliver economic justice if unemployment is perennial and if it is largely concentrated in communities of color, and specifically and the African American community. And so one might remember that the March on Washington was in fact called the March for Jobs and Freedom. Modern civil rights leaders and activists have also embraced the proposal, which has also found its way in the Green New Deal resolution in the US, and some have called it perhaps the most crucial component of the Green New Deal. So the next tradition is the environmental justice transition, and the job guarantee is perhaps the most direct answer to the Paris Accord claim that climate justice rests on human rights and justice, just transition for the workforce, which means the creation of good quality jobs for all. I work in another tradition that primarily looks at macroeconomic policy and macroeconomic stabilization policy. And I should say that all of these traditions are commensurate with each other, and many of them borrow from each other and rely on each other's research. My disciplinary approach is what has become known as modern monetary theory. And the approach basically recognizes that economic justice, human rights, environmental and social justice cannot be achieved without a fuller appreciation of the monetary system and the policy options that it affords different governments. To put it simply, for MMT, unemployment is a public sector failure, and it is a full employment is the responsibility of the public sector. We focus on the state's exclusive powers to tax and administer the monetary system and argue that those powers actually create monetary unemployment, but they are the very same powers that are needed to eradicate unemployment. And so from an MMT perspective, there is something deeply undemocratic about a system that creates unemployment, that has all of the options and full capacity to eradicate it, but refuses to do so. So for MMT, democratizing work is tightly connected to the question of democratizing money, democratizing public budgets and the public purse. And from a macroeconomic policy perspective, there are two policy options only. The status quo essentially guarantees unemployment. Unemployment is perennial. It is with us even in the best of times. The so-called natural unemployment is used as a policy guide. Policy does not aim to eradicate unemployment altogether, but is nevertheless responsible for all the social costs and for the fallout from unemployment. The job guarantee is the other option. Instead of guaranteeing unemployment, we guarantee decent employment opportunities for all, preventing all of the negative consequences that come with a broken status quo. Very importantly, the job guarantee challenges the view that unemployment is natural, and worse, that it is required to maintain price stability. The proposal is designed in such a way to guarantee that most basic human right, provide living wages without compromising price stability. When we say decommodifying work, we don't mean that the job guarantee eliminates wage labor, but we mean that it fundamentally transforms the basis on which it is offered. So the first reason why the job guarantee decommodifies work is that it ensures that the employment offer does not depend exclusively on the profitability from employment. In other words, while the private sector may be an engine of job creation, the public sector has a crucial role to play in providing the missing jobs. And the way that the public sector would do so is by providing employment, public employment for the public good. In other words, the offer of employment is divorced from the profitability of employment. And here, the recognition is that the private sector has not been able to create decent and enough employment opportunities for all, but it also has not been able to address acute social and economic needs. There are areas of social concern that continue to be understaffed, underfunded, and we need to mobilize the public sector to create those employment opportunities. It decommodifies work because it also offers a missing employment safety net that working people do not have. It is an addition to any income support that they might receive, but it is an employment safety net that ensures that a living wage job offer is always on the table. It is always available. And as such, because it is a public option for good jobs, it establishes a firm labor standard for the economy as a whole. It establishes that floor that private employers have to meet and match in order to retain workers. And furthermore, the program focuses on prevention. It focuses on inoculation against the large social costs that we already mentioned, costs that extend beyond the unemployed themselves, but also to their families, their children, the broader community, and the larger economy. How can we make it happen? Well, the job guarantee is a very popular proposal. It has been recently polled in the last 2 years in the US and UK and France, and it garners overwhelming support across partisan lines, gender lines, and I think it's fair to say that few policy proposals enjoy this kind of bipartisan support that the job guarantee has enjoyed. In the United States, even coal mining communities are organizing around the program from West Virginia to Kentucky to Appalachia. There's a growing coalition of organizations that have embraced the proposal. And of course, we have legislation that is also in the pipeline. Recently, the largest party in Scotland also made it an official piece of their policy platform, but the job guarantee has also informed various experiments around the world, various direct job creation programs that have aimed to provide employment relief. What COVID demonstrated is that finance is not scarce. When governments recognize an urgent need and they decide to tackle it aggressively, finance can be mobilized very quickly. It is readily available. That is not the obstacle. And whether governments realize this or not, the cost of inaction and delayed action is very high, and it is unavoidable. And thus we are at a juncture where we must choose how to proceed. So while we have finance, we also have plenty of models of implementation, plenty of templates and experiences from around the world that we can learn from the Youth Guarantee Program in Brussels to the large employment program, Plan Jefes y Jefas in Argentina, to the largest job guarantee in the world, India's National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, to small experiments like those in Austria, and the long-term zero unemployment areas in France. We have the funding and we have the ideas. What we do not have is time. The climate crisis is upon us, and we do not have the luxury of waiting to structure the precise incentive, the precise nudge to encourage the private sector to address the most urgent needs and urgent problems before us. What we need is big and bold government action. We need the public sector to lead the way. And we need nothing short of an all hands on deck approach. It will take work. And the question before us, will this be good work? Will it be democratized work? Will it be accessible for all? And will it solve the most urgent planetary concerns before us? So please join us in our work. Go to democratizingwork.org, our website, and get involved.